like I'm getting red just thinking about it because it makes me so mad. Is you know what? My parents did that. I don't want to do that. I had plenty of people who have very high net worths and are still not happy people. But there are steps that you need to take. You can't just manifest it. I love that
Oh,
you picked it up and no one's asked me about that chapter yet so far. So you're right. I think that's something that we're trying to teach people in terms of habits. Exactly right. Oh, I
so
love you so much. You're the best. More people need to hear this.
Bernadette, very nice to have you here. Like, huge news, book coming out and a book launch schedule. So we'll talk about those things, but we just give a quick introduction. Bernadette Joy is a fellow financial expert, speaker, and founder of Crush Your Money Goals platform, where she helps individuals simplify their finances through coaching courses and a bunch of other resources. Um, First generation Filipino American, is that right? All
Yes.
right. She paid off over $300,000 in debt in about 3 years. Is that correct?
Yep.
All right. And built your first million in net worth by the early 30s. Huge accomplishment. You've been featured on CNBC, Forbes, and a bunch of TV shows, especially nowadays announcing the book. So, since you've been interviewed so many times, and people, I want people and I encourage people to go find your story, and there's a bunch of places to find it. But since you were so gracious to let us have an early copy of your book, I wanted to ask you some questions about the book. And so
Sure.
hopefully to get people into it and motivated to go get it. All right. So I'll jump right into that. And I'll just ask you some questions about the book.
Sure.
Let's see. So, well, in the book, and I should say this, it's titled Crush Your Money Goals 25 Smart Money Habits to Save, Invest, and Fast Track Your Financial Freedom. So, you actually give us 25 money habits that are associated with those steps in your crush system, right? Crush, every letter means something. It's a step in your system.
Mhm.
And I would like to start before I ask you. I actually I love chapter two. I know it's kind of short, but and concise, but the money mistakes you share in there to me, that's gold. It's
Thank you.
gold. Having coached a bunch of people, I'm like, oh yeah, this is so good to put into words. As well as there was recommended mental shifts. Love that. I actually recommend a few of those too. But what would you say is your favorite part of the book?
Well, wow. Thank you so much for reading the, reading the book before we got here. To be honest, my favorite part of the book is the different stories that were sprinkled throughout. So in there, we call them Crush Boot Camp success stories, and they are real people from all over the country, and some people even outside of the U.S. who actually implemented one of these habits and how it might have changed their financial future. And why that was really important to me was that initially, when we had talked to the publisher about doing this book, they wanted to have what they call sidebars in the book, which is like little boxes, little anecdotes here and there. And I had pitched to them, I said, I want to do the sidebars only if they are of real people and not just my own story. And so that was really important to me. And I was so grateful to the people who were willing to let me put their stories in the book. Because as you know, as a financial coach, some people are not going to go out there and be like, hey, I have a ton of debt, or hey, I didn't have my money together. But they were brave enough to share their story. And that made me really happy.
That's awesome. Yeah. So those people, the stories that you share are from people that were in your community that you were helping, that maybe were in some of the courses or coaching or mentoring, and they let you share some of the successes.
Yeah,
Or
every single person there is someone that I have met personally,
nice.
that I have seen their finances. So these are not just people who are like, joined my Facebook group or something, and then I've never met them before. These are people that I've actually sat down with, looked at their net worth, looked at their budget, and worked with them at least for several months, if not years, on their finances. And so it's very special to me that they are included in the book because they taught me actually how to be a better coach.
Awesome. Awesome. That's really cool. Now, so and I don't know, do you call it a system? Like, what do you call it? The crush thing. Like, what do you when you are talking about it? What do you call? Is it a system? Is it a method? Like what?
That's a great question. I have not really nailed down what that is. Like sometimes I call it a program and sometimes I call it a system. But In either way, it's a group of steps that we have tried and practiced and validated since 2016. So, one of the things that I really advocate for people to do is absolutely get a coach, absolutely, work with someone who's had the experience. But I've had the fortunate joy of being able to practice this with hundreds of people. And so when we first started Crush, it was completely different from what is in the book
Mm.
now. And it took 8 years for us to figure out what the right steps were, what the right order was, and if it would work for everybody.
Oh, wow, that ties perfectly into my next question because, it's 5 steps, right? And you say in the book that they're in that order for a reason, and that you should complete them in that particular order. Well, can you give us like the 1 minute overview of the crush steps and an example of how doing these out of order could be kind of like counterproductive?
Yes. So the steps are: curate your accounts, reverse into independence, understand your net worth, spend intentionally, and then heal your money wounds. And what I found is that most people were going out of order in that they were trying to budget and trying to cut expenses before they really even understood what accounts they had, how much money they had, how much money they had to spend, and then what their actual financial goals were, which are all the previous steps. And what I learned is for example, if you have someone who has, negative $300,000 of debt. So take Bernadette 8 years ago, negative $300,000 of debt, and then Bernadette, same person, but $1.8 million in net worth. Our spending patterns are going to be different.
Mhm.
Right. And so I realized it was actually really important first for people to just find all their information, which is curating the accounts, then figuring out, okay, this is what I have now. What are my goals? Then understanding what I have available, which is understanding my net worth, then creating the spending plan. And then as we're working through this, the last step, heal your money wounds, is, in my opinion, the one that is most overlooked in personal finance, where all this stuff brings up emotions and feelings and past trauma. And so we make that the last step on purpose because we want people to actually walk through some of these earlier steps to see what it uncovers.
Mm. Yeah, I saw that and I thought it was really good too, the heal part, because I have, coach people that went through huge obstacles or problems or trauma or whatever, did whatever was necessary, got better, improved, but still feel like they're in the hole, and their numbers don't say that, but they haven't really mentally come out of the hole, and I mean, it's something you got to deal with.
And I'm saying this partially in jest, but one of my worst nightmares for me or for any of my clients is that we actually reach our financial independence goals and we are still unhappy. And what I learned, and I'm sure maybe you've learned this too, I've met plenty of people who have very high net worths and are still not happy people, right?
Hmm.
So to me, financial freedom, when I talk about how to fast track your financial freedom. Yes, I'm talking about the numbers, but I'm also talking about the point at which you actually feel like you have enough. For some people are billionaires and will still feel like they don't have enough and still feel like they need to make more money. That's not the target audience that I have. The target audience I have says, there are things that I want to accomplish in life. And yes, I want to be a good person. And yes, I want to leave a legacy. But at some point, I can say I have done enough, I have made enough, and I am enough.
Absolutely. And now you mentioned target audience. Who did you have in mind as your target reader when you were writing the book?
Um, you know, my clientele is pretty diverse. And I talk about in the book, the youngest person is in their 20s, the oldest person in their 70s. There doesn't seem to be a demographic that goes with my audience. But what I found is in common is that they're typically the first person in their family who actually believes and wants to pursue financial freedom. And so, we can say first generation and, in some regard, as in like I'm a first generation Filipino American, but I'm talking about this first generation of people in their families, whether they're white, black, Latino, um, who say, you know what, my parents did that. I don't want to do that. My family has had years and generations of people just working really hard. And and never being able to retire, right? And so the person I really had in mind was the person who said, I think this is possible, but I don't know anyone else around me personally who's done it. The only people I might have seen is on social media or like people on television. But that's why it was so important for me to put so many other stories of other real life non-millionaire people who have done these things to prove to folks that this is in fact possible, but there are steps that you need to take. You can't just manifest it.
Yeah. That makes so much sense. That's probably why I connected so much with the book because that's us, right? We were the first ones in both of our families, my wife and I, that reached the level of financial success that we've been able to reach. And I had that point where I was like, man, we must be doing something wrong,
That's
right?
right.
And when you reach that point, you're looking for a community, a crew, and information. Okay, what do I need to learn? What do I need to do different? And is it possible? Are there other people doing it? And then going forward as a coach, I've had so many people that felt like they were alone in this thing. Like I must be the only one. No, you're not. This is fairly common. So that's really cool. That makes sense. That's why I was able to connect with the book. If that was the kind of like avatar of the person that you had in mind when you wrote it.
Yeah, may I add
Um,
something?
yeah.
Is it's been interesting. I've had several clients who've come to me. Now that the book is out, it's actually helpful for them to show some of their family and friends like, okay, she's a like she's not a scam, right? And and I've had people in the past who joined my programs and their families were telling them, you might be being scammed right now because who pays off $300,000 of debt and builds $1 million of net worth in their 30s? Like literally.
Right. And then tell us about it.
And then say so, right? And no, I had one client, she showed her family uh articles of me on the news, showed the video clip of me on Good Morning America, and the family was like, nope, still sounds like a scam to me. And so at first I was just like, that's odd. And then I realized I'm like, you know what? I can't really fault her family because something somewhere told them that a young woman of color making that much money, she probably did something weird, right?
Right.
And so I'm really grateful for the people who purchased the book. I've had many clients who purchased the book for other people to say, hey, this person I've been following and I've been telling you about for a while, like if you really want to know what she's teaching me, like here is the thing that's easy for them to do. And we made it purposefully really affordable for this first gen to be able to share with their family and friends too.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, let's switch gears. You say in the book that you should identify what luxury means to you. So, what does luxury means to you, Bernadette? And how has it changed as your net worth has increased?
Okay, I have a real life example right now. So luxury for me today sounds very corny, but it is to be able to go out into the world and not feel like I have to look away a certain way or act a certain way and I can just be who I am. So what I mean specifically, I um I have been a member for this yoga studio in Charlotte and I really love doing yoga. But there was a point where I was feeling really self-conscious about myself because my belly was sticking out and all these other women were wearing like these really expensive, I knew they were expensive yoga clothes. And I'm just like, I just wear my gym t-shirt, like my free t-shirt from FinCon and old like ratty shorts, but that doesn't seem like I can do that here. And this past Sunday, my husband and I discovered that there was a recreational center by the city that's close to our house that we just never knew existed. And we went in there, and it was so nice, and everyone was so friendly, but everyone like looked normal, like everyone just like wearing ratty old shirts and just working out and doing their thing. And I did two things. I I signed up for swim lessons because I don't know how to swim. And I was embarrassed to tell people that I don't know how to swim. And so luxury for me is being able to afford the swim lessons, but they were very affordable. But more so, it was the fact that I can go starting in January on Thursday mornings to go take swim lessons, where before I used to have to work. on Thursday mornings and actually build this life skill. And so I put this out on my threads the other day that I'm taking swimming lessons and I'm really scared because I'm genuinely afraid of drowning. And 700 people like said you can do it, like you got this, like so supportive. And I can tell you, Alfredo, 10 years ago I would never admit that I didn't know how to swim. I would never sign up for swimming lessons, and I wouldn't have had the time because I was working a really, really, really stressful job before.
Yeah, that I mean that's huge because I think part of that is just time, right? Having the freedom, the flexibility to say I'm gonna go do that on Thursday morning. I found the same thing, like it's if I can share mine.
Yeah.
You know, we did like we were talking about offline earlier. We did some good things. We got out of debt. We invested this and that. So our net worth has continued to go up because we've put our money in things that go up in value. But our incomes have actually come down, at least temporarily, because this phase of our lives, we're doing things that we're not working full time. We're taking a lot of time spending on our baby and whatnot. But to me, that's luxury to me. So I'm using time to do things with family and to do things that we enjoy instead of using it to go earn maybe as much money as I could. And I'm not saying it's gonna be like that forever, but right now, that luxury to me, being able to, I'm gonna work part-time, doing something I enjoy, and have time to spend with family and whatever. And so trying to explain to even family members that, hey, that to me, that's luxury, that's wealth. Like being able to do what I want, the fact that the work I'm doing, I enjoy it, and I'm not even doing it full time because I want to spend time with family. And
I
so
love
that's one
that.
of the benefits of getting into this stuff, right? And getting your money right. It looks different for everybody. Our families are different. Our the stuff that we like is different. How we want to spend our time or money, it's gonna be different. It's okay. But one of the things I teach is like you gotta be intentional and
That's right.
identify those things and believe through education that hey, it's doable. You may need to sacrifice some things, you may need to work hard for a little bit, but it's worth doing it. So anyway, I think we're super on the same page on that stuff.
I love that
All right.
you picked it up and no one's asked me about that chapter yet so far. So the fact that you asked me about that is really great. And also, you're right. I think that's something that we're trying to teach people in terms of habits. A lot of people have built an Amazon habit or, like wanting to have a really fancy car kind of habit. And those are great. There's no shade to people if that's what you like to do. But the fact that a lot of people don't think about having free time as luxury is something that we're really trying to impart upon people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I can say, I mean, if you're gonna spend on something because it brings you joy or it's part of your whatever, but do it intentionally, not as a secondary effect of something else.
That's right.
All right. So in the book, you recommend paying credit cards every week.
Hmm.
What are the benefits of doing that?
Yes, it's one of those like kind of what? Ooh, like people will read that and like, did I read
I
that
know.
part? So what I found out from coaching a lot of people is that, especially those who get into credit card debt, most people that I ever coached have not been super irresponsible. What ended up happening for a lot of my clients is that something happened. They lose their job, or there's a medical emergency, or something happens with the kids. And so then they have to put things on the credit card temporarily because one, they don't have a cash flow cushion, which I also talk about in the book. But
Mhm.
but they think that they've been keeping up with their expenses because they pay off their credit card every month. What I found was that by paying your credit card off weekly, you really stay on top of what your true cash flow is. And I found this out personally for myself. I was a big user of credit cards back in the day. I used to work for Chase. So, I was all about that Chase Sapphire before, right? And when my husband and I were working on paying off our student loans, I paused on using all credit cards and I just used a debit card. And even though I had paid off my credit card in full every single month, when I stopped using the credit card, that was the first time that I overdrafted my checking account,
Wow.
which made me realize that I was spending money before I had it. And then I was just
Mhm.
always playing catch up. So, what I recommend in conjunction with paying off your credit cards weekly, that you have at least 1 month's worth of expenses sitting inside your checking account so that you're not living paycheck to paycheck. That's one thing. And then paying off the credit cards weekly, the benefit is you are going to know exactly how much money you have at least every week. You're not going to have a huge bill that you're going to be, shocked about at the end of the month. And you get better at timing your budget with like what you plan versus the actuals. So what I found with budgeting is that a lot of folks, they couldn't comprehend how to budget the way that I teach how to budget, because I teach people how to budget using the zero-based budget and in real time. And they're like, well, I don't understand. If I didn't get my paycheck yet, then how am I supposed to pay my bills? Like, well, that's called paycheck to paycheck. And that's probably because you're on a credit card. So if you are paying it off weekly, then you'll really know if you have enough money.
That's awesome. I really wanted to ask you about that because I've actually been recommending the same thing. Because
Well,
same thing, because through helping hundreds of people, I realized, well, first of all, those that had the killer combination of using the credit cards and not having a budget often spent more than they made and not even realized it until
yep,
it became a huge problem. But
yep.
then I had all those cases like you were talking about, like, hey, I've always used my card. I always paid it in full because I don't believe in paying interest and da da da. But then all of a sudden, there came a point where I just couldn't pay it anymore. And because they didn't realize, they were just spending a little bit more, lifestyle creep, interest rates going up, all those kind of things. And all of a sudden, even that payment, they just couldn't make it. And then it started adding and carrying a balance. And the other thing, told them too is like, look, if you're paying it in full when the bill is due, you're already behind,
That's
right? Because
correct.
you spend the money today, and maybe the bill was due 3 weeks from now, and then they give you some grace period to pay it, and before you know it, you're in January paying the coffee that you bought today.
Mhm.
So you're
Or
paying the coffee that you
50%
bought
of the
today
time.
with January's income.
Mhm. That's exactly right. Oh, I
So
love you so much. You're the best. More people need to hear this. And I will say this though too. I get a lot of clients who are high earners and think that that is what's going to solve it. They're like, "Well, I make a lot of money, so it's not a big deal." I promise you that if you make a lot of money and you're using credit cards, you're probably spending an extra 5, 10 years working, instead of saying, you know what, I make a lot of money. What can I do to retire early? Instead of, I make a lot of money. How can I get more credit card points? Right. And that's the other thing that I really shifted for a lot of my clients, is that unrealistically, I think, there's some financial coaches out there who say just like cut up the credit cards completely. And I used to be one of those people, because I did, in fact, cut up my credit cards for a while I was paying down my debt. But practically speaking, that's not convenient for a lot of people. And I do have clients who travel quite a bit and they do, get some points and stuff. But that shouldn't be the main reason you use credit cards. And so I did have one client who kind of went very extreme and went the other way. And she was like checking her credit card balance like every day, and that was causing too much stress. So that's actually where, that's why we say, like, you don't need to look at this every day. Like on Friday evenings before you tap into happy hour and relax for the weekend, just go pay off your credit card and then you can start afresh.
that's right. And I mean, and if you're using some sort of budgeting system, you're already accounted for those transactions, so you don't even have to think too much about just paying it.
Hmm.
So that's cool. All right. So you also recommend doing an audit of your insurance policies every year.
Hmm.
In your experience, I know you have what you say about this on the book, but I want you to give the chance to talk about it. In your
Yeah.
experience, how are universal or whole life insurance policies affecting the financial journey of the people in your community?
Can you see my face right now? Um, Here's what I'll say. I'm getting red just thinking about it because it makes me so mad. Is I don't think that uh, universal and whole life policies are inherently bad. I think they're in the wrong order of what most people are doing. If you have all your stuff together and you have just got money to burn, like, more power to you, right? But what I've been very, very angry about is that I have seen, um, particularly I've seen a lot of people in the Black and Latino population who are being sold these policies and being told that this is an investment, and it is not, and are spending money on these premiums that they cannot afford. They truly cannot afford it based off of what I'm seeing in their budgets. And no, did any of their financial advisors, quote unquote, really just insurance brokers? Did they actually look at their budget before they sold them this policy? I promise you they did not, right? And and then the thing that made me even more mad was, do you know how many single women, women, no kids, have been sold these insurance policies saying that they need an insurance policy? And I had to talk to these women and say, who are you insuring?
Hmm.
Who are you insuring? And like, no one have that conversation with them. So I don't blame any of my clients for signing up on those. They were doing what they thought was the right thing to do. And I'll give you a prime example. I have a couple that I'm coaching right now, and they have a young child, and they were convinced to go get a life insurance policy for all of them. And it's costing them several $100 a month for this, but they had tens of thousands of dollars in credit card debt.
Wow.
That is not right. It's not right. And so when I say that it's really affecting people, there is a lot of misinformation about what life insurance policies actually are. I'm not against life insurance policies, but as I talk about in the book, term life insurance is good enough.
Hmm.
and and I'm at the point, and this is like a very extreme example, but I'm at the point that I actually don't have life insurance for myself because I don't have kids and I don't have anyone that I need to insure. And honestly, if I pass away, my husband will have more
You'll
money
be
because
okay.
I'm not spending it on my my K-pop stuff, right? So
Yeah.
so there comes a point that I made a goal for myself and for many of my clients, like, get so wealthy that you can self-insure yourself, that you don't need life insurance. But in the meantime, term life insurance is good enough. But definitely for the vast majority of people who are probably reading this book, whole universal is not necessary.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you made me remind me. I have a client, divorced lady, with an okay income, barely making ends meet, two kids, and she was sold some universal life policies for the kids. And I was like, "What is the purpose of this?" And she's like, I'm just, I just thought I could save for college." I'm like, wow, I mean, if you made a list of all of the options in the world on how to save and invest for college, that would have been the last one on the list. So, but yeah, like you said, and it's just, she was like, hey, I thought I was doing the right thing. I talked to a professional, and that's what they offered. And so, yeah, I think it's borderline the predatory some in some cases. So I'm with you on all that.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
All right. Now, I wanted you to tell me about your $1 rule and and in particular, so explain quickly what it is, and then tell me how you reached that specific number. I'm very curious.
okay. So I'll use my dress as an example today. So I bought this dress in Japan. I think it was $28 USD, and I only picked it up if I promised myself that I would wear it 28 times. Otherwise, it was staying in Japan. And so that's generally how I go about most of my purchases. Even if you see here that shelf there, I bought that using the dollar rule. It was like $150, and I was like, can I use it for at least 150 days, and I will still like it, and it will have purpose. And it has two purposes for having the $1 rule. One, it's to make sure that we're being intentional, like you said, about our spending. We're not just going to buy something, use it one time, and then like toss it out. But on the flip side, if you're going to buy something a little bit more expensive, it removes the guilt out of
Mm,
buying something if you know you're going to use it and you know that you're going to actually take care of it. And it works really well, especially for larger purchases like electronics or sofa. I would rather have my clients, for example, spend a little bit more on a quality bed because you're supposed to keep that bed for 10 years instead of
mm,
cheaping out on a bed that's gonna break your back. So how I came up with that that number was that I've always been a cost per use person. Like, I think that's just a very common rule in personal finance. But this is a true story. Is I'm ashamed to say that I am definitely a fashion like shopaholic, and I I had a girlfriend who was smarter than me, and I would buy all of these dresses, and she would just borrow them from me instead of buying them. And She would pay for the dry cleaning, but I'd be buying these expensive dresses and then I would wear them once or twice. And it dawned on me one day that I was just like, wow, I bought this dress for $100 and it cost me $100 for that one use. And
Mm.
so what would feel like a good reasonable number but also easy for most people to calculate, like I don't want people being out there in the wild, like just pulling out a calculator every single time for every single purchase. So it's just very easy. You can say, okay, if this thing costs $75, am I going to use it 75 times? If the answer is no, then maybe I need to second guess this purchase. And it's not to say that you can't buy things that don't do the $1 rule, but it adds this like layer of like a little checklist in your mind before you go and spend unintentionally.
Yeah, yeah, I love that because it's just another, it's a way to get a different perspective on that decision, right? And it's sort of like a consistent perspective or lens that you can use to make the decision. I love it. I never personally done a lot of that, but I like it a lot. The only thing similar that I can think of is when I started my journey, and I started when I first, I was still a W-2 employee and all that, and started budgeting and all that, started being more conscious about what things cost. So I started thinking of it in terms of how much time did I spend to buy that, and so it helped me at the time. But I like this better because it's about more about value, right? Like what value am I getting out of it based on the use I'm gonna use it. So I think it's really cool. I'm probably gonna implement it.
Thank you. And since I mean, right now we're recording this right before the holidays. I've been advising a lot of people to think about the $1 rule when you do gift giving as well. I'd rather buy gifts for people that feel like they're going to get good use and intention out of it versus like before I used to buy people like the gag gifts or it's like, oh, I think they'll like this because I saw this in the store and just to buy it quickly. Versus now having a little bit more intention and thoughtfulness when I use the $1 rule. And that has made gift giving so much more fun for me.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I love it. All right. So finally, I'm Puerto Rican, and so talking about money is often a prohibited topic in our in our families, in my culture. You come from a Filipino family. How important is it to talk money with your family? Like you call in the book, you actually have a title that says "Talk Money with Your Family" as part of what you denominated the peace plan. How important is that?
Ah, yes, the peace plan. We know it's important, but I think going into 2025, it's going to be critical, not just important, but imperative, especially for um, uh, families who have not had these conversations before. And I'm saying this I thought about this morning. I'll say this. I was really sad because I was looking at pictures of me and my husband. We found my book at the actual bookstore, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is crazy! I can't believe this happened."
Amazing.
And then the second thought I had was, I wish my dad was here to see this because my
Mm.
dad passed away in 2021, and there's so many things that my family did not talk about before he passed away. And one of that, definitely, we didn't talk about estate planning. We never talked about, health directives when he passed away. So we didn't know what to do. And I never in my wildest dreams thought that I would be a published author who was going to make money off of my brain. Right.
Mhm.
So I'm saying this to anyone who is listening to this because if you are coaching with Alfredo or if you are following his content, chances are you actually believe that it's possible for you to become wealthy. So just assume that you will. Just assume that you will be wealthy. And so then what kinds of conversations, what kinds of expectations do you need to set with your family when you get that wealth? Because um I've had a lot of great people who have supported and who have been thoughtful and very generous and kind. But I've also had people, which maybe some other people can relate to this, of like people like, oh, now you're too good. Now you're like, oh, you think you're somebody, right? Or people who, I mean, I had cousins who I haven't seen in decades who like all of a sudden was like, hey, we need money. And I'm like, whoa,
Yeah.
like there's all sorts of money can be funny. Money can make people weird, right? So I'm saying this in the sense of from a positive perspective, I want you to believe that you actually will be wealthy. And so it is very important for you to start setting expectations early now before things get harder. And then also just to protect yourself, because there are things that you will never expect as you build wealth. And it'll be great for you to have a plan and know who in your family is going to help you execute that plan.
Wow, awesome, awesome. Well, Bernadette, thank you so much for spending this time with us and for putting all this wisdom into writing. Can you tell us how we can find your book? What are the options? And if you want to tell us about the book launch you have coming up.
Yes. So I so enjoyed this conversation. You were so thoughtful, and I'm so grateful that you actually read the book, because that to me is really indicative of the fact that you're free, that you can take time to go, read a book. Um, Here's what I'll say is crushyourmoneygoals.com is where you can find information on the book. And also we have several master classes we're doing in the next couple of weeks, both live in person and virtually, where you can learn to crush your money goals. And then we're also doing something fun right now that if you decide to purchase the book and you let us know, we'll send you a book plate, which allows you to have it signed. And then we'll send you some stickers. And there are some people who will win some $10 gift cards. So we're doing some fun stuff. So if you want to purchase a book and then you DM me on Instagram, we will send you that stuff your way.
Awesome. And what's the Instagram handle?
Oh, that's great. It's Bernadette Joy, spelled with the word debt.
Which I remember we were talking about that. Like you left that behind a long time ago, but you kept it in the handle, I guess, to reflect the journey.
I think is my destiny. Remind me, keep me grounded.
All right. Well, Bernadette, this has been great. Truly appreciate it. I look forward to collaborating more in the future. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.